as you instinctively know, when it comes to detecting deception, the eyes are where it's at. It's the first place we go to, and we do that innately. We're programmed to go through and look at the eyes and see if we can find a light there or a disconnection there. And we don't learn this. We're going to learn a few cues here as we go along, but for the most part, this is instinctive. It's something that we do to go through and survive. It's something that we do to go through and protect ourselves or to protect others as well. Like I mentioned in my piece, More Than Liars, I talked about my son's eye behavior within that. You know, it's like, well, how did he know how to do that? You know, how do you know how to lock on and give you that alpha male stare, right? We just do. Not all of us, but most of us. It kind of comes into play that way with us naturally. So we're talking about Oculesics then, and there are 3 different areas of eye behavior that we'll get into. One being eye movement, the second being the eyelids, and the third being pupil dilation. All 3 of these get into deceptive tells there. So first off, a lot's been developed and written and researched about eye movement. And just recently, within the last 2 or 3 years, I think it was 2014, when a study came out indicating that everything we thought we knew about eye behavior, eye movement, isn't true. It's been debunked because there was a mistake, a common stereotyping of individuals that in terms of left brain, right brain, the eyes move according to the theory. The eyes would move to one side or the other according to which side of the brain was analytical and which side of the brain was creative. And at first there was a kind of a default assumption that everybody is left brain analytical and right brain creative. Well, it's not true. And it's not that easy to do, but a whole method of detection was developed around that concept of left brain, right brain. In that if the eyes go up to the left while the individual has been asked a question, if they happen to be right brain creative, remembering that the optic nerve is switched, okay? So they don't go to the right, so they go to the right brain, they go to the left to go to the right brain to create something. But the creation, deception is creative, right? Lying is creative. So the idea was if they're going up to the left, right brain creative going up to the left, then they're making it up. If they go to the right, left brain analytical, then they're doing memory recall. But that's not the case. It's not that easy. Again, it comes back to a baseline. How does your subject's eyes move when they're just talking, when we're not getting down to important deposition stuff? Do they move at all? Or do they go down? Do they look over? You know, what's that? A departure from that baseline might be indicative, okay? But anymore, we can't go through and say, oh, he went up to the left when he said, well, I was, Tuesday night I was at the pizza parlor. It doesn't work that way. So the best we can do, really, and anybody who tells you anything different, I think is trying to sell you something, is that if there's a departure from the eye movement behavior, like the alpha male stare, where they're not going to move their eyes, they might go a little bit wider, in fact, and not going to go for you to blink, kind of a thing, or they won't make eye contact with you at all, okay? If you get into those kinds of movements, then I'm going to be suspicious that something's going on. But outside of that, we can't go through and say, well, if the eyes are going from one side to the other, it means something. No, so true. However, the eyelids do mean something. If the eyes are the windows to the soul, the lids are certainly the curtains, right? Or the blinds. The squinty eye is an indicative of I don't want to be caught. I'm lying to you right now. Or the closed eyes. Not too long ago, we had a presidential candidate. His name is Ben Carson. Anymore, I'm kind of wish that Ben Carson won, actually. But when Ben Carson would do a press conference, he would close his eyes and he would go through and answer like this, and it was impossible to go through and believe him. Now, I'm not saying that the guy was lying, the cue of the eyes being closed during that time, and we see this in people. This goes on often, okay, as like a facial tic or just kind of, again, a manifestation, a physiological manifestation of nervousness or escalation, which he was, right? But an individual who squints their eyes or closes their eyes, there's some hiding going on there. We're not getting the full picture, and they're not getting the full picture with the squinty eye thing. If you get a chance, I'll post a clip of William Jefferson Clinton's deposition in front of an investigative congressional committee who was, they were in the Capitol, he was in the White House. They did a video feed, and the nation watched this deposition going on. And Bill Clinton, he was a poster child of every kind of eye behavior you can imagine, including the squinting, as well as the wide-eyed kind of thing. We go wide-eyed when we want to go through and try to prove to somebody that I'm not lying to you, so I'm going to go through and be wide-eyed. Well, that's just a telltale as when somebody says, well, honestly, yeah, well, when somebody says honestly, chances are it's not. Let's see, what more can I say about the eyelids? Oh, blink rates, how can I forget? The number one sign really in Oculesics is how often we're blinking. Normally, under normal humidity conditions, we blink 3, maybe 4 times every 10 to 12 seconds. If it's really dry, like it is in southern Utah, we blink more. If we have high humidity rates, we blink less. Interrogation rooms are set up with humidifiers to establish a perfect 68% humidity. So as we're trying to get a baseline on blink rates, we have that to go by, right? But if the individual has contact lenses in, or they have allergies or a cold or something, we can't use it. And that's hard because the blink rates are pretty telltale when it comes to the accuracy of that being an indication that they're being deceptive there. So the blink rates go one of two ways. They'll either escalate or they will de-escalate. Okay, if blink rates escalate, they departure and they start blinking more rapidly. It's obviously a tell that they're becoming more emotionally involved or strained. Again, there's some escalation of maybe they feel that they're under threat as a result of that, so they'll go through and blink. If there is a de-escalation in blink rates, where they slow way down, way past the point where the eye actually naturally needs to moisturize itself. We're out in the desert driving right now, the air conditioning's on, it's drying out my eyes, so I'm blinking a lot, right? I leave them open for a long time, ouch, right? So it's unnatural for us to keep the eyes open for a long time, and that in and of itself becomes an indicator that the individual is trying to fool you by keeping their eyes open longer than usual, or that the eyes are just blinking on their own because the brain's going, I can't take it anymore. The third area is pupil dilation. This is fascinating to me because our pupils normally dilate when we're trying to go through and pull focus. Right now I have this light coming in here, right? If I were to put my eye there, the pupil would dilate because it's hitting the direct sunlight, right? As opposed to what's happening. Let me see if I can. They're pretty dilated or pretty constricted as it is, not dilated, constricted, because of the amount of light. And those are the physical conditions under which our pupils both constrict and dilate. There are a couple other conditions, and again, this divvies out by gender. One condition for men is when we get angry. When men get angry, the pupils dilate. Lets in more light. We're able to see fight or flight kinds of pathways if we need to. If we're fearful or angry, we've got that going. That's a cortisol response. In women, pupils dilate also under anger, but they also dilate under 2 other conditions. One is if they're sexually aroused, the pupils dilate, and we're all attracted to that. That's a nature thing. Look on your fashion magazines with models, and you'll see a dilated pupil that's taken with a low modeling lamp, a low wattage modeling lamp. But when the actual flash goes to freeze that image, to take that exposure, the flash goes at something above 1/60th of a second, freezing the eyes before they have a chance to constrict, catching the beautiful dilated pupil. We're attracted to that. The third condition under which females' eyes dilate are when they're lying. I bet you wish it was that easy for men, right? But it's not. And I think, again, what I've read on this is the research shows that there's a conflict, more so in women than in men, that they're caught up in the ethics of lying. They're going to do it anyway because they want to protect the individual, they want to protect themselves, they want to smooth things over, they want to lessen conflict, all kinds of things that are totally justified to them. But still, they feel bad, and in that feeling bad, there's that cortisol release that goes through, and the pupils respond by dilating. Fascinating, huh? Yeah. So here's the deal, though. You can't walk around when you're talking to your significant other. You'd be studying their pupils and making sure they're, are they dilating? Are they constricting? What's going? Because you're not listening to them anymore. And this takes a while to go through and develop. And typically, when we're in a deposition or in an interrogation, there's one person that all they do is oculesic behavior. And what they've done, they've been able to establish this person's baseline blink rate. This is their normal blink rate over a 4 or 5 minute period of time. And then when the questioning starts, is there a departure from that baseline? Okay, I talked about baselining in a few videos ago, right? That's what we're getting into. The same with eye movement and the same with pupil dilation, right? What's going on in the happy talk 2 or 3 minutes before, or sometimes 2 or 3 hours, depending on the subject, before we actually get into the meat of the investigation, what it is that we're trying to determine within that. So, all right, let's see. Did I get all 3 of those in? Eye movement, not a whole lot going on there anymore, like we thought. Pupil blink rates, big time, and pupil dilation as well. Those 3 different areas, and it's imperative that you get a baseline. All right, proxemics is coming up. You know the drill by now, right? Hope so.